like there's no tomorrow.
Welcome to the Big King Podcast.
Okay. How's everyone doing? I have Justin here with me. I haven't seen you in a while.
It's been 3 years, dude. At least, I left it during COVID, so
Right.
at the start of COVID. So that was like a whole debacle, like a whole thing.
Really?
Thing. Yeah, man. So like when I'd gone back. I'd done a trip to Myanmar,
Okay.
and I was probably there for like 3 or 4 weeks. And I got back, and COVID was a thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like December 2019. Got back probably like mid-January. COVID was sort of picking up, and then as a friend of mine said, "Oh, well, let's go hang out in Thailand and wait for this COVID thing to blow over." Right? And so, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, this really sounds great, nice."
Right.
So we fly to Hong Kong, spent like 4 or 5 days in Hong Kong before we were going to meet his partner in Thailand, and we're like, "Yeah, cool. Well, let's just hang out and we'll do some training." He did kickboxing, so I was like, "Oh, we'll just hang out and train." And
Yeah.
as I'm getting from Hong Kong to at Hong Kong airport to go to Thailand. My mate had a flight earlier than me. I get there, give my passport over, and they look at my passport and they sort of sketch over it. They go into the back room and they're like, "We need to check something out on this passport." Come back out, ripped in half. So yeah, my photo page was ripped, and like they were like, "You can't enter Thailand." Throw my passport back at me, and then I was like, "What?" And this is like mid
What happened?
COVID. Oh, dude, it was a whole damn thing. We had to so he went out the back.
He ripped out your page?
He had a big rip halfway through the photo page.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, "Dude, what?
Are you allowed to do that?
No, God, no. And
Yeah.
I'm like yelling at him. I'm like, "Dude, what the hell?" I'm like, "What the fuck?" It's a whole damn thing. I'm like screaming at this dude. He's like, "No, the passport's damaged. You can't get in Thailand anyway, so too bad, mate." And I've gone, "This is so sketchy." So I made a complaint to the airline. It was a whole damn thing. They ended up paying for my passport later, like months and months later.
Jeez.
Yeah, it turns out that he'd like done there was a big boob on their end, and yeah, he went out there and pretty much damaged my passport, and
Right.
they have no reason why why he did that. He just decided he wanted to do it to somebody that day, and then
And it just happened to be you.
and it happened to be me.
Right.
And then so I had to wait in Hong Kong for like, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks. I was in Hong Kong.
So a month.
About a month I was in Hong Kong during as COVID was just picking up, and then like we had like a bit of a moment. Like I could have either flown back to Shanghai and tried to figure out how to get a new passport from Shanghai during COVID, or I'd go back to Australia. My sister was getting married as well too, so I was like, I gotta go. Yeah, I was like, I gotta go to that, and so I went back to do that, and then pretty much the borders locked down, and it was like 3 years where I wasn't allowed to come back to China.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I always thought that you were just like, I don't, I've kind of done something with this Refuge thing. That's my project. I'm over it. Like that. And I just thought you were like, oh, I'm done with it. I don't need to.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think that you were. There was no like goodbye party. There was nothing. I was just like, oh, just left.
Yeah.
And I thought that was it.
Yeah. It was a real funny one, man. Like I went, I left. I didn't plan to, well, I literally left thinking that I was going to be in Thailand for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I still had like groceries in my fridge and like
Jeez.
everything. Yeah. Like, so, cause I remember I had all my apartment was full of furniture.
Yeah.
I had everything still in China, my bank account, everything. I took like 10,000 RMB with me.
Okay.
And like, that was it. My card when I went back to Australia
Yeah.
wouldn't work at all because no one takes Union Pay in Australia.
Right. Correct.
And so my card wouldn't work, and I just had like 10,000 RMB to my name, and I just had to pretty much start from scratch back in Australia.
Right.
That was it. And yeah, I didn't plan to finish up a Refuge. If really the Refuge thing was like totally out of my hands and Rita's hands. Rita was a GM at the time. The 2 investors wanted to pull the cash because they thought COVID was going to last forever, and in a lot of ways they were right.
Yeah.
And so that was like a whole. I got back, pretty much had 2,000 Aussie dollars in my pocket, and I was like, "Oh, what am I going to do here?" And so I just like started from scratch again back at home. Stayed with mum for a few months.
Yeah. How was it? It wasn't that bad. I actually enjoy staying with mom.
Yeah, it was nice. It was actually pretty cool.
Right.
Like the first month is like was the first couple of weeks really nice, and then when you go into lockdown mode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was like, then I was like, okay, yeah, I can get out of here now. I need to roll. I need to get out of here as quick as possible. Plus, like my little hometown, dude, you don't want to spend too long there. It's
I have the same problem.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a suburb in New Jersey, and I have my friends that are like kind of, we call them townies.
Sure.
I don't know what you guys call them in US Australia.
Townies, like, are they like people who just never leave town?
Just never leave, yeah.
Yeah, right. Get you.
Right.
I think we wouldn't have a name
Okay.
for them like townies.
We call them
I know
townies,
Yeah.
and they just stay there. And originally, I was always like, I don't want to be a townie. Like, to some point, I think they got it right. Like, they learned really early, this is what I like. I don't know if that's completely true, but they were just like, oh, I like this. I can stay here. I have my group of friends.
Sure.
I don't really need any more. And I look at them and I see them being really happy. Like, they married high school sweetheart, kind of just stay there forever. And they're like, I don't need to go see the world. Is there anything that I really need outside of this town? Probably not.
Yeah, I think like that's I can definitely relate to that. Definitely home, very similar. People stick and they stay there forever.
Yeah.
And their lives turn over on that. I think that there is a little bit of I think you can either be really in that and you can be content with that lifestyle, or you can really rebel against that and you're out of it. And I think you and I are people that would totally rebel out of that, right?
We came out, tried to see the world, tried to do our own thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, we can put that to a story. It's not as black and white as like, oh, they're content and we're not content. It's like there's probably levels to that, but then like they've sort of like adjusted to the system that they're in, right?
Yeah.
They've gone, oh, actually this is comfortable. And comfortable is very is very enticing, right? Like you can sit in a comfy spot for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what's happened there. It is comfortable. Like being in New Jersey, like everything is within, you know, a drive's reach.
Yeah.
And,
5-10 minutes, you can get whatever you want.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the same at home, right? My hometown's called Singleton. It's like a little tiny, like, I think there's like 2,000-3,000 people that live there.
Same. Yeah.
And like, I think you can make really good money if you're working a mine site. And you can also, there's like a big wine region there too.
Oh, nice.
And so if you drive like half an hour, so you can sit in the little town, you can work in the wine region, hang out and sell wine all day, which is a pretty cool lifestyle. But then you never leave.
Right.
You never ever leave, and you just do that. Wasn't for me. I did it, and I was like, I wanted to be a chef as a kid. I was super into being, right.
Me too.
Everyone wants to be a chef. Like
when they're a kid.
Yeah, exactly. They go, this is gonna be great. Did you go hard into the?
So when I got to Shanghai, my second job was actually helping a couple of friends open a restaurant and bar.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know how long you've been in China.
My first time in China was 2013.
Okay. I came a little bit before you, not too much,
Sure.
but we had a place called Horizon. It was right on the Bund.
Right.
We had a nice lounge, kind of like fancy, turned into like a club on the weekends. But then upstairs was a very high-end restaurant.
Cool.
And we got a Michelin mentioned chef, and it was very fancy. And I remember the second chef that we got. I would go on Wednesdays, and I would just learn from him.
Just go hang out.
I would just go hang out in the kitchen, and he was having a little bit of trouble with the Chinese, and I was like, I'll translate for you, no problem, and just teach me how to cook.
Yeah,
and
cool.
we owned the place, so I was like, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah,
so
just
it was
hang
nice.
out and soak it
Yeah.
in. Yeah, it's cool. I think so did you mostly stick in the back of the house though?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think it's a cool, I think when you're young, awesome lifestyle, right? Heaps of fun, fast, quick, in, out. You finish real late. You want to go out, you're drinking with the chefs afterwards, go partying afterwards. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool at the time. And then that can wear on you quick.
Quick.
You age like white bread. Yeah. Like, fuck me. It's like, it is hardcore. I worked at like a little Italian place and I was like a school-based apprentice.
Right.
So the school would work with the business, and then you could do your ticket, like your qualification through that.
Right.
And I would do that maybe 5-6 nights a week. I was working at the restaurant.
Yeah.
I wasn't finishing 3 a.m. or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
But I was working most nights. And then when I finished school, there was this summer period between when you started uni and when you started and you finished high school. And I just went really hard into it. They also owned a bakery.
Okay.
So I would do
That's
the bakery.
awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I got to learn all this great stuff. But on the other side, those 3 months, I reckon I aged more in those 3 months, and I looked like it too. I was gaunt in the face. I looked like I was on meth, honestly. I was just skinny. I lived off this, if there's any Australians listening, Dare iced coffee, which is this iced coffee milk thing that you drink down. It's sweet. It's super sweet. And I used to live off that. I'd drink one of those in the morning. That'd keep me going till lunchtime,
Yeah.
I'd have a pie, like a meat pie that we'd made. And then I'd just do that, like rinse and repeat for 3
Right.
months. Made heaps of good money for an 18-year-old.
Sure.
And then I pretty much after that little stint, I got into uni, left for uni, and then I just pretty much did it very casually, just to make money, just to cover my bills.
Right. It's not bad.
Yeah, it was not bad. It was cool. And then once I was done though, I did my last commercial cookery shift was I was probably 21, and I was doing weddings at the time.
Weddings are rough.
Yeah,
Weddings are rough.
and I literally was I knew it was going to be my last ever shift, and I was going to Malaysia within a week, and so I've gone, fuck yeah. And as soon as I finished it, I dropped it. I'm going, I'm never fucking doing this again.
Right.
It was the most, it was 3 a.m. I was sweaty, covered in grease.
Right.
People are drunk everywhere because it's a wedding. It's just it was a nightmare. And I remember being this is, I don't know why I enjoyed this. Because you love it at the start, and then by the end of it, it's just...
I don't know when chefs became the new rock and roll stars. They just... That job just got really publicized as cool.
Yeah.
Everyone was, a lot of chefs were on a lot of drugs or always drunk.
Yeah.
And it was just became the new, rock and roll guy.
Which is weird because there's no unless you're the head chef, there was no
Nope.
other way for you to make extra cash to live that lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So you go out, and I did this too. You go out and do some drugs with the chefs afterwards, right?
Right.
Have a good time,
Yeah.
right? You go get drunk and do this and do that. And I was 17. I thought this was cool,
Right.
And then but I was on $10 an hour. I was not a lot of money. Not a lot of money, man.
Yeah.
And so next thing you know, you spend all your cash on this lifestyle. The chef himself, the head chef,
He's doing all right.
He'd do okay.
Yeah.
He's doing all right. He's got a profit share probably, or he owns it. And but man, it was not. Yeah, it's very funny. I think the Gordon Ramsay, Jamie Oliver sort of thing set that up.
Right.
And then you had this nice guy in Jamie. Then you had this absolute asshole in Gordon, and that just shot up in popularity. Next thing you know, everyone wanted to work with Gordon Ramsay because he was the coolest guy ever.
I think he still is. He's still pretty cool.
Still a pretty cool guy. Still got a good brand. But he's softened up heaps lately though.
Yeah.
I guess you have to.
Can't be like that forever.
No. I don't. And surely you'd put it on. Surely
He's not like that. He can't be.
You couldn't be.
Yeah.
Not all the time.
No.
I heard he's vegan now too. He's totally changed. He's everything.
Rough.
Yeah. He's I know. Anyway, you had Gordon come through and in Australia, I don't know what it was like in the US, but we had MasterChef come through.
Yeah.
And that was the big
Yeah,
show.
MasterChef, Top Chef. There was
Top
a bunch
Chef.
of TV shows that
Yeah.
made it super cool to be a chef.
Exactly. And then, man, and they'd make this food that's not even really that edible. You're a bit confused as to whether or not you can. It was pretty. It looked really cool.
Yeah.
And that now is all gone. That is that's
Oh,
totally
wow.
that's totally gone. That. I went when I was back in Australia. I'd go help sell wine at the old place, and I'd always look over at the chefs, and they the style of food they do now is so different to what we did. It's very dated.
Okay.
That's the stuff where you're doing the little, the dainty little things on
Right.
the plate and putting in the little flowers that
Yeah.
micro herbs and all that sort of shit. It's all dated and it's done, and it's thank fuck for that. It's real food now.
I still see it somewhere in Shanghai. Every once in a while, you'll see it still.
Yeah. I think there's a thing for it.
Sure.
I think that will be. I think that trend will die pretty hard though.
Okay.
I think the more that we, I think I really think that, this is me getting all conspiracies.
Yeah, go for it.
Right. So I think that as we go away from being a globalized economy, people are going to appreciate more localized foods.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, right.
100%.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so I think the macro trend in the world is to deglobalize a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that will actually make people appreciate, really good Japanese food and really good Shanghainese food and really good whatever. And that will be really sought out.
I hope so.
And that would be, I think that's much nicer than some fusion mix, dainty thing that's, people don't really understand. They like to see the identity in that food. If I go to a Japanese place, I want to have Japanese food.
Right.
I don't want to have some micro herb crusted something or other that has a Japanese influence and
Right.
shiro, whatever. I'm I just don't care about that.
That's interesting.
It's me though.
I think some people still care about that. I think that because there's so many people that have kind of traveled around, they kind of want to see, I don't know, a mix of all the things that they've seen. That's my guess. And in New York, I know there are a lot of my friends that are American Chinese, and they're well, I'm a little bit American, I'm a little bit Chinese. A little bit of fusion, it kind of fits me, right? I think America as a whole is, has that mixing pot kind of feel, and everyone wants to see themselves in their food at some point.
Sure.
If there's a half Japanese, half Thai person, they want to see that Japanese and Thai fusion.
Yep. Yeah. I
kind
think
of see that.
I can definitely see that, but you're still talking about home food.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you're still talking about food that is like a person's identity. And
Correct.
that's where I think the trend is like it goes back to the identity of the person and the chef that's making that thing, as opposed to like some, abstract idea of what a meal is, right?
I agree.
I don't know if probably like 10 years ago, it used to be the thing where you do like a 15-course degustation, which would go into like all these different little things. And that was so like that. You just don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm glad.
Exactly. And that was like, and that's amazing because from the back of house side, it was
terrible.
fucking
It's a nightmare.
the worst, man. It was the worst because you're just like, oh, this is painful. And then you have like 80 covers to do it for.
Yeah.
They're not at the same time. It just would be, it's a nightmare. I'm glad I'm out of it. And then once I got out, I was, pretty much all jiu-jitsu from there. I did a little corporate stuff.
Right.
But
like,
we hate that.
so now that you're back,
Yeah.
what'd you learn? That's what I wanted, because the majority of this podcast, you left, came back, Refuge is back.
Yeah.
Better than ever from what I see.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going really well.
Yeah.
It's going really, really well.
What'd you learn?
So
What's different about Refuge?
Refuge got shut down. We had to put we pretty much refunded all the students out and wrapped up shop real quick. We closed down for like 12 months, and then Rita, who was the GM, we decided that we wanted to reopen again. We thought that was a really lost opportunity.
Yeah.
We didn't really want to close down the original one. That was sort of like a decision between her and I. We did not want to close down, but it was out of our hands.
Yeah.
And so we found a new investor, a new guy, awesome individual who I'll leave, unknown. And then we also partnered with one of our students named Dan.
Okay.
He was one of the blue belts at the gym, and we sort of said we're going to redo this thing. It's been open for, I want to say 12 months. Literally opened up the worst timing for Shanghai. Like, we opened up when Shanghai was normal, right? Remember when Shanghai had that weird normal period where like everyone was like, yeah, COVID's over. COVID's over. Our borders are locked, but COVID's over, right? And then, yes, exactly. And then we opened up during that time. I was in lockdown at that point in Australia. So I was super spooked that we'd go into lockdown again in China. And Rita was very like, no, trust me.
We'll be okay.
We'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then we opened up, and that was like the most challenging year to open a gym. Like the most. It was nuts. Like, every week there'd be like some lockdown or something come up.
Correct.
And then, I don't have to tell you guys about Shanghai lockdown, that's for sure. And then, and that was really cool. Pretty much now we've got, I want to say, just over 100 students. So, like, it's still pretty early days. We're looking to have at least 400 by the end of the year, minimum.
Great.
And then we'll probably have somewhere between 60 and 80 yoga students, yoga affiliated people. Right. Because we do mostly kids. We have an adults program.
Refuge was always mostly kids, though.
Yeah.
Right?
So the original idea was that they were gonna, and so it goes back to like your first question. The original idea of Refuge was to effectively recreate this gym called VT1 in Australia. VT1's the biggest martial arts school in Australia. They've got like 1,200, 1,500 students, depending on when you see them.
A lot.
Huge gym. Huge gym. And then, and I went and worked there for the last 2 years in Australia. I worked there and I was their manager. I used to, and so what I learned was like, running a big gym like that, and like, what is the scale? What does it actually look like? And one of the things we found with what they wanted to do with the original Refuge on Hourn was to recreate that gym, but for China, right? Okay, and they have VT1 has like an MMA program, a boxing program, a kickboxing program, jiu-jitsu program, a wrestling program, a Krav Maga program, karate for kids, jiu-jitsu for kids, Muay Thai for kids, women's kickboxing. I think there was something like 22 programs. We have KOPD, which is a boxing program for people with Parkinson's.
Wow.
It's really cool. Amazing.
Super niche, but great.
Oh, awesome. Very cool. Very cool. I'll go into that in a second. That's a really cool program. Anyway, so we had all these different programs, and the idea was that, okay, we'll try and recreate that for China, because China loves that. We think kids sports will be a big growing market.
Correct.
Martial arts is cool. Let's hop onto that. And so that was, I think they'd really tried to recreate it as opposed to really listen to what the business was saying.
Gotcha.
We did martial arts for kids really, really well. We didn't do martial arts for adults super hot. It's just what it was. In that market, in Gubei, in that spot, it was just really difficult to get the lead flow in, to get the people that we wanted in. And it was very, and we found kids were people were willing to spend the money on the kids. People were willing to have their kids 2-3 times come a week, and we just did it. And so we did that
really well.
We did that really well, but it was never the focus.
Right.
It was never ever the focus. It was literally a 50-50 split between kids and adults, and so that was like really hard. It was really hard. That was really hard. My job was to look after the kids program. That was what my thing was. And then when we started the new one, I said to Rita, we are not playing to some silly idea of what we think it should be. Let's like listen to what the market really wants and let's do it really, really well. Yeah. And kids was the big one. I said, I really want to make sure that we have the best kids program in China. Yeah. And that's it. And that's what we've got now, right? We have Refuge at the, if you knew where the old one was, there was this big walking street. If you go around the corner, there's like a Starbucks there. Go around the corner from the Starbucks, around the block, there's a little lane called Jinchulu. Okay. And there's a new food and beverage mall thing there. It's like the new Trespassers in there. Cool. There's a taco truck and that's cool. And that's downstairs, and then we're on the top floor.
Nice.
And so we have a gym, kids school up there, and we have the yoga studio there too. And and now we just do kids and yoga, and like once or twice a week we have some adults just to come by. Some of the parents want to come and train and learn the basics and do that sort of stuff.
So I think kids is awesome. Yeah. I think that's the right play for that area, especially.
Definitely.
There's so many families out there that makes sense.
Yeah.
But here's what I've found, at least. The kids here are so much more competitive than the kids back at home. At least that's what I found. I don't know about you, and I haven't been home in a while.
Sure.
But kids are so competitive because at school they're just like, you have to be the best kind of thing. And then the moms all push them, and that's a lot of stress, to be honest. Yeah. And I kind of worry that another thing for kids is just like an additional stress point.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah.
How do you guys deal with that?
So, awesome question.
Yeah.
Right? So, one of the things I think we're really cognizant of is that the timetabling issue for a lot of these children. I've got one student who does private lessons with me, comes to group classes, also does math, also does English, also does piano, also does violin, also does Lego class. I know.
Class
there's a Lego class, right? Not kidding.
Yeah.
And like does all these things, right? And I think for a little girl, that's too much, right?
Me too.
That's way too much. I would not want that. But I think there's two sides. Some kids thrive in that environment. This little girl in particular does thrive. She does really, really well. Some kids do not.
Yeah.
Now, a big part, I think, of what we do at Refuge is not necessarily... I'm not here to tell you that I'm going to make your child the number one killer on the planet. I'm not here to sit here and I'm going to make sure that your kid starts super hard drilling and they're going to be the world champion, right? I don't do that.
Yeah.
I make sure kids feel confident in themselves. That's it. They come in and they feel confident within themselves. That's like, if you were to say, what do we sell? We sell confidence, right? That's what we're trying to do.
I like that.
Right. And and I think that's important, that's different for different kids. And it's, we really hire coaches that have like the emotional intelligence to like sort of pick these things up.
Yeah.
And we also, we do this quite often. If we think the parent's not a good fit for the community, we don't take their money.
That's good.
So I'll just like say, and we've done it a few times where I've just gone, they'll be sitting on the sideline coaching their kids, and I hear it, and I've gone, okay, if you do that one more time, we're going to have to do a refund, and you're done. And we've done that. And man, because we're super selective on who we have in the community and who's going to be part of it. We run events every 2-3 weeks to make sure that the community feels like they come together.
Right.
It's a bit like what I wanted to do with this refuge, and we had the PCYC in Australia. You had the Y in the US, right? I wanted the Y, but like upmarket, right? That's pretty much what I wanted. I wanted a place you could.
The Y.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You drop your kids off. You feel like you're confident they're going to be safe. They've got a good place to be. They're going to learn some great sports, and they're going to feel confident in that space. You feel confident in that space. That's what I want for Refuge. That's what we were trying to do. You know,
I love that.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So the Y doesn't conflict with excellence either, right? If you think about it, like if you have some kids, that's where you would go to take a break in a lot of ways. And that's sort of the space I want to try and make at Refuge, is we're not trying to make an excellence portal, right? We've got some stuff to help with that. We're doing lots of little different little projects. And one of the big things we're doing at the moment is like helping a lot of kids want to go to international schools. It's a very wealthy area, so a lot of them go to different international schools. They go abroad for X amount of years. So to get into these selective schools abroad, they usually need a reference,
right?
And a lot of that comes from the sports side.
I got you.
Right, so we offer that program as well, or that service as well. That if you want to have a really good reference, you got to do a certain amount of work with us. We help as assistant coaching. We have that. You have that ability to do that, and that's really good.
Yeah.
So there's avenues for it, for that like sort of excellence sort of path, if that's what you want to go down. But for the large part, most kids coming in, learning the basics of how to move. Yeah. It's the biggest thing. Like you talk about what do the kids come in and really need. We started this program called Core. We actually stopped doing jiu-jitsu for under 4-year-olds. Under 6-year-olds.
I completely agree with that.
We stopped doing. Yeah. We have this thing called Core, and it's super cute. They still wear a gi. They come in, and they just learn how to do the 7 basic movement patterns.
Right.
Can you squat? Can you jump? Can you do it? Yeah. Like just.
That's perfect.
That just makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we do a few little takedowns, right? We do a few takedowns just because it's jiu-jitsu-ish.
Yes.
And man, that like the other thing is like, can they catch a ball?
Yeah.
And so we throw a ball at them. There are kids who like we do a test with them and we go, can you catch this ball? And they miss their hands.
Yeah.
Like this, and you're like, dude, you're 5. You're 5.
Yeah.
You can't catch a ball like it's 2 hands on the end.
Yeah.
And so we have that program now just for these kids that like, Ali looks after them a lot. They live a very sheltered life.
Yep.
They don't play in the dirt. Their hands are built like this because they play on the phone all day.
Yep.
Can you? Well, we're going to teach you how to squat and jump and kick and do these things.
Basic movement patterns.
That's it. And so like if you were to have like a kid who's like a 5-year-old who done jiu-jitsu for a year and then put up against our kid, well, yeah, they're going to win. They're going to beat him in a jiu-jitsu match. Yeah, for sure. At least our kids, like, that kid was probably always going to be a killer though. If they're doing jiu-jitsu for a year and that determined at 4 years old, man, he's probably always going to be a killer. Right? At least like so they can rise the tide for these other kids and like they get the confidence they needed, right? Because that kid, if he didn't know how to squat and jump and push and pull and all the basic patterns, he was never going to be good at jiu-jitsu. Right. He's never going to be good at any martial art, any sport. Yeah. Right. So we're just trying to teach that, right? And that's like
that's valuable. That's super valuable.
Hopefully it will be. Hopefully that'll be the thing. That'll be, we make a lot of value out of that because, and I think the parents get it too. Like, sports are not prioritized at the moment. Yeah. But
you look at Kamal, right? Kamal came on and he was like, look at how many people in Australia do sports and how many of them here do. It's night and day.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? There's just the priority scale is just completely different.
Totally different.
And I grew up with that in the beginning. I think my mom kind of wanted me to be like a study kid, but then realized real quick that I was not.
I'm not going to do that.
And she was like, all right, well, you're doing okay at swimming. Let's just keep pushing the swimming thing. And I got really good at it. Yeah. And it built confidence. Yeah. I started getting good. I realized that, hey, if I put in hard work, I can win. Yeah. I can go to these competitions and do really well. Positive and that was huge for me. Yeah. Right? It got me to start talking to the girls on my swim team. Yeah. It's, I got new friends. Like all of that was built on, if I put in hard work at swimming, I can do better and I can be confident. Exactly. Super valuable.
Exactly. And like it's like this positive feedback loop that comes back into you and you go, okay, well actually I'm actually doing it right. Yeah. I'm not as nipped, like, and again it comes back to confidence, right? And that's where I think there's like that's probably one of the big things I learned at VT1. Yeah. Right. Talking about that, there's a lot of stuff there, and we sort of had chat before about like all the little details. I'm happy to go into all that. Oh, but
that I definitely want to.
Yeah. But the thing was that what VT1 did really well is that they have these really great programs that are built for just the person at that right time, and then you have to. It doesn't matter where you fall in terms of the athletic spectrum, right? Okay. You have a program for you because they have the scale to be able to facilitate that. Yeah. Right now, if you go to any class in any sport, right, as an adult, it's effectively everyone in one room, right? Correct. If you go to rock climbing, like we were talking about before, everyone's in one room. Yeah. They have the scale, like for whatever, but your mate might be 5 levels above you, and then the next mate over might be 2 levels above you. Sure. Like there's no like group like what we call like pooling of talents, right? And so what they did really well was, okay, our fundamentals program is built for people who are on the athletic spectrum between 0 and 2 out of a scale of 5.
Okay.
They're gonna if they're from 2 to 5, they'll probably do the program in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
If they're from 2 and below, they're probably going to do it for 3 months.
Okay.
They're going to do it for 2 times over. They get graded for their first stripe after doing 3 months of doing this type of
This is for adults too.
For adults, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
definitely, yeah. So how it would work, fundamentals program, you'd have like, usually is about 3 months, roughly speaking. 3 months depending on your age group. I had a guy who was like I think he was 72 or something like that. He took 6 months in fundies. So it is, because he had to do all the stuff. So after you do fundamentals, you go into intermediates 1. Intermediates 1 is learning about the gaps that you lost in fundamentals. So fundamentals, it talks about it's mostly self-defense, a lot of standing techniques, how to what are the positions, there's mount, side control, back control, whatever. And then you go across to intermediates 1. That class would be at least another 12 months, and that's where you actually learn the gaps that you didn't have before. So say if it's mount, side control, back control here, well, here you're going to, and then close guard. Maybe you learn about half guard, open guard, blah, blah, blah,
Gotcha.
whatever. 12 months in that. Usually do 6 to 8 months on intermediates 2, which is either in like, it would either be like wrestling or judo or something like a sort of like specialist sort of thing. And after that, you've been doing jiu-jitsu for about 2 years. Yeah. Maybe 3 times a week. So then you get to the blue belt class. Yeah. That blue belt class would be probably a 2-year program. When I was teaching the blue belt class, it was like 60 to 80 people strong every week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then you do that for 2-something years. Well, technically there's advanced 1, which is blue belts, no stripes. They will usually train with themselves because they're sort of more dangerous and you need to sort of like look after them a little bit better as well. Then you have advanced 2, which is stripe 1 to 4. Because as we all know, blue belts like drop out pretty quickly. Yeah. So like having them in their own baby pool to keep themselves accountable was really important. So that was the same class time, but they would train with themselves over here, and then the stripes would train over there. And then you'd have elite, which was purple and above. And then elite would have like 100 people on the mat easily.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And you'd have like 20 something black belts. Yeah. Maybe 10 to 15 brown belts, and then the rest purple belts. Right. And that was like how the classes ran. Yeah. And for a program of 500 people in jiu-jitsu, 600 people maybe sometimes, that's how the system operated. Right. And if you think about it, okay, at every point in the system, fundamentals, okay, you just walked off the street. We talked to you about what you were looking for out of jiu-jitsu. We give you that sort of thing, right? And then we sort of step you up. Okay, now you've sort of, the relationship has changed with this sport. Now you're looking to get a little bit more into the sport and a little bit more into the details, more into the weeds of it. Okay, intermediates is actually going to teach you about those basics of being in the weeds of it. Right. Right? And then when you go into intermediates 2, you actually don't have the skills in the standing area now. So now you need to go focus on that for a little bit. Okay. And that person goes, now I'm actually like reaching out and seeing how this works.
So I like the programming, right? I think the programming is valuable to an extent. But here's why I like the rock climbing system. Sure. Because everyone's in the same room, like you said. Sure. And that's correct. Yeah. And it's usually a friend of yours probably brought you over, and he's like 4 levels above you. But your friend that's 4 levels above you gives you a ton of information. He's like, oh, look, I can help you with this. And everyone kind of helps you a little bit, and you take a little piece of everyone. As opposed to a structured program that's kind of like, we teach everyone this way. I enjoy just learning a little bit from Justin, a little bit from this person, a little bit from that person. And everyone being in the same room, you kind of watch how that person climbs, and you're like, oh, I could do that. And then you try it, and then your friend is like, oh, no, you're doing this wrong. And you get a lot of feedback from different people, and then you kind of pick and choose what you want.
Yeah, true.
And I enjoy that. I enjoy that
cool.
process.
Yeah, I think that's. I think there's something to that to being able to watch people as well. Yeah. In that sense, and like you're all sitting there and like all appraising or like evaluating how this person's doing in front of you. Correct. So then you can actually give it that. And I think that's just a different culture, right? Like I love that too. Like I think it's like very it's very welcoming.
I enjoy watching black belts roll. Just sitting there and just on the mat being like, oh, those 2 black belts. I kind of get what he's doing. Why is he doing that? And then you talk to your friend over there, like, why is he doing that? And then they're like, oh, I think it's because of. And
exactly.
I love that.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
at open mat, watching that is incredible. To
Awesome.
me.
Yeah, and I think that's where the rock climbing does really well because you can only have one person on one climb
one
at
route.
a time.
Yeah.
And so then that's like there's that dynamic obviously creates a better sort of like evaluation or like at least chatter between like amongst everyone else. And like I think that's like what's lost in a lot of like just people's lives now. We were talking about before as well, right? There's this really good book called The Great Good Place, and it talks about Ray Oldenburg or something like that. It's like in the 70s.
I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, and it's like a novel that's sort of meant to be a metaphor and for modern life. And he sort of has his job. He moves to a new town, and he has and the church that he normally goes to closes down. Right.
That's what I wanted to say when we were at the coffee shop.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because there are less churches, and church was huge for my family.
Exactly.
They helped everyone with everything.
Yes. Exactly.
Like my aunts needed church to like help them with their visa, and
Mm.
it was just the social place to go.
Exactly, right?
And there are so few of those places now.
Exactly. It was like you have your work, you have your home life, and then you had church was the big one. It was the third place where you'd meet everyone. And as we've become less and less involved with the church, as a society, less people are going to these places. There is like a big void of that.
Yeah.
And it's been taken up by mostly commute time. Commute time has been the big killer of it. Each week you're going in, you drive. People are willing to go further for better jobs to maximize that sort of rent to like income level, right? And I think that's a real shame because that sort of loses like this. Look, I never went to church. I was never a thing I was growing up with, right? But what I did have was like I went to the PCYC, right, which is our white version of the white, and that I think is what's lost, and that is where I think like the rock climbing place fits in, and people love that, the ability to chat.
Yeah.
And in the book, they talk a lot about hospitality venues. They talk about bars and restaurants and places that you can go and chat to people. And it's like the Cheers thing. Like you walk into a bar and everyone knows your name, right? Yeah. That's like really nice. Right. People love that, right? And that's what I think is missing. And I think it's why like a lot of people in Shanghai love to drink a lot, right? I came back.
Oh my God.
Right?
Drinking in Shanghai is out of control.
Right.
By the way.
Nuts, right? I was literally come back. I was like, I'd have a beer on the weekend or whatever with my mates, pretty occasionally. Came back to Shanghai. It's like full on. It's
4 days a week. A lot of people are drinking 4 to 5 days a week.
And like, man,
I don't know if that's healthy.
That's definitely not healthy.
Yeah, it's
definitely not healthy. Definitely not healthy. But I think it's because like you want a place to go and unwind, right? And like there's too much stress. There's too much stress doing all these other things. It takes you an hour to get to anywhere. It's a lot of people, blah blah. And the next thing you know, what's the easiest or lowest hanging fruit in terms of like as a social relief? Well, you go to the bar and just go have hot pot and drink beers and do whatever, right? Like, and that's fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not begrudging that. Doing that, going once a week and doing that's totally cool, right? But if you're doing that every week, that's going to take a toll on your body over the long term. And I think there are healthier alternatives to that. Yeah. Right. And I think that's what you're seeing, like with why rock climbing, we were talking about before, rock climbing, chess blew up over COVID. Right. COVID really accelerated this process of like.
There's no place to play chess around here.
Really?
I don't know.
I play it online. So
yeah, like, everyone plays online. That's what it is.
Online. Yeah. Yeah. I would like to go to a club and see it locally and see like what their growth rate was like. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. But I know online blew up massive, right? But I think like these really niche sports and like really niche things like just took up over COVID. One, because people had more time. And two, they realized the value of those places because they were stuck at home and at work 24/7. Yep. Right? Home was work. They were stuck there. They couldn't leave. So they needed an escape, needed some sort of escapism. Right. And a lot of people drank a lot during lockdown. Right. Yeah. I did. Yeah. I used to get wasted during lockdown.
A lot of people did.
Yeah. Right. And then a lot of people got really into whatever weird thing they wanted to get into, and they got super niche into it.
I started doing video. Like before that, I was like, oh, only audio. I don't. And then I was just like, well, I should just learn video editing. Like, why not?
At this point, why not? Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how long I'm gonna be here.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Did you find video editing hard? Like, is it how different is it to audio?
It's pretty. Just because you have to figure out all of the when to clip it and then matching up the audio and all of that. I don't know. It took a while for me to kind of get. And then I started doing like little clips on Xiaohongshu and all of that, just because the long one was difficult to digest for a lot of people.
What's the podcast space in China like now? Because I
terrible.
remember 3 years ago, I remember you're like, oh, it's like, you know, I'm just getting it going, you know,
Yeah.
it's cool. It's like, I never thought that audio really took up.
It actually recently just started taking up.
Really?
There's this new platform called 小宇宙, Little Universe.
Okay.
And it, for a little bit, it was like the secret platform that like cool people were on.
Okay.
And then it started, you know, cutting people for content, and then it got worse.
Right.
But for a while, it was like hot, and everyone was like, "Oh, all my content's on 小宇宙." Like,
Okay.
it was very cool for
That's
a little
cool.
bit. Yeah.
And like, so is it because like, always thought with commute time and with like,
Yeah.
I
me
would have
too.
thought podcasting and audio would have just taken off.
People love video. I don't know why. I think it's because there's so much Wi-Fi in the metro. Like, there's no Wi-Fi in New York
Interesting.
in the metro.
Interesting.
So
really cool.
they can go on Wi-Fi or whatever and just watch video. Whereas in New York, there's still subway stations that don't have any internet.
Yeah,
So you
right.
have to bring a book. You have to bring like, which isn't wrong. Like,
Yeah,
that's great.
that's cool. Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Or you're just like, or you're listening to something, you know, that you downloaded.
Yeah, true. Interesting. Yeah, I would, that's like such a like second order like thought process. I was like, I'd have no idea about the Wi-Fi thing.
Yeah.
That's cool. I find even like when we're doing the social media stuff, like
Yeah.
I don't really touch much of that. Like it's all reader side for it. But even I found it so interesting, like getting into the weeds of it,
Yeah.
like learning again, and I'm being like, yeah, I reckon like if we did like a 20-minute podcast, right, like once a week, like where we just talk about, you know, how like what, like maybe even like a member interview, right, like a testimonial almost, right, for 20 minutes, I reckon they'll take off with the members, and readers like, no one will listen to it. Literally nobody would like it. If we did a video for 5 minutes or like 3 minutes 30 seconds,
Correct.
whatever it is on
She's right.
WeChat, yes, exactly,
She's
and
right.
it would kill it. I'm like, I just
Yeah.
don't get that. But like, yeah, again, it's just a different culture, I guess, in that sense. Is that also sort of like how people spend their time on their phone?
Yes.
Is it?
I mean, everyone's just on Douyin, 小红书, and anything past like 5 minutes is very difficult to watch.
Interesting. Because
So I
was
keep everything at 5 minutes.
really 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's it. Right. Far out. And then
Yeah.
even like, I thought articles were quite big here. Like when people read much more, obviously here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like, is that, so, because then I go, because that's where, again, I don't really make the logical leap, right? Like,
Right.
I'm like, you'll read a big article, but then like you wouldn't do it on audio. Like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
yeah. Right.
But
Xiaohongshu is quite like article based, isn't it? Like,
小红书 used to be very article based. One photo or two photos, and then an article.
yeah.
And if you ask any of the brands now, they'll tell you I only do short video. And the brands will cut it down to like 2 minutes. They'll be like,
Yeah, damn.
2 minute short video. That's what I'm looking for. It's
Interesting.
weird.
Yeah,
It's a new world
It
that
is.
I'm not like into anymore
Yeah,
either.
yeah. Right,
You know?
cool.
I kind of just do this. I put it out into the ether, and people that listen to it listen to
Let's
it.
do it.
you know?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Right. You're not like growth hacking your way through trying to.
No.
Nah. Yeah.
And I know that I should. Like, I have friends that tell me, oh, if you do like a better thumbnail or whatnot, like you can. Like, I just kind of do this because I enjoy this.
Yeah, I get
you know, I enjoy the journey, and to some extent, like I'll bring this back to jiu-jitsu. I find that people here are solely goal based. They forget all about the journey. You know,
Yes. Definitely.
it bothers me a lot because it's the same thing in Magic. I tried to do a show where you bring one card and you tell me your story with this card.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is going to be huge. Like, everyone has a story about it.
Yeah.
And I found that all of my Magic friends, they're like, this is the card that won me this tournament. The end.
That was it.
Like,
Yeah.
that was it. I won, and that's it. And there's no friendship story. There's no, like, it was just, I won. Winning is the goal.
Yeah.
And
Right.
everyone, like, I got hundreds. And people, I was like, I don't want to hear that story. Like, I want to hear, like, you know, you grinding and, like, oh, here are my friends. I met this cool artist even.
Yeah.
Something.
Exactly.
None of that.
Like, how did you get? I stumbled across this card. Like,
Yeah.
I went to a competition, and this guy he swapped me on this.
Yeah.
Like, whatever it was, and then
Some of that.
Yeah, exactly.
I got none of that. It was just
Exactly.
I won with this card. The end. And I was like, damn, like that's not what I want to like put out. And everyone was just so goal based,
Yep.
and no one cares about the journey.
Slightly similar, slightly different.
Yeah.
We've been like, so we're always hiring coaches. So if anyone wants a job, talk to me. We had a
think about
guy.
it.
Say what?
I'll think about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a teaching kids. It's heaps of fun. I only work a couple hours a week. It's pretty sweet.
I taught kids. I taught kids swimming for 3 years.
Telling you, man, it's an awesome gig. But anyway, so I had a bunch of resumes come in, right, a bunch of CVs, and I was shocked. I very clearly said on the JD, teaching kids experience. Looking for kids martial arts coaches. Can be fitness coaches, can be jiu-jitsu coaches. Just if you are in kids sports, talk to me. Because if we can get you in for core, I can teach like the basic core. You don't need to be an excellent jiu-jitsu person. Yeah. Learn how to squat and jump and pull and do all the things, right? Yeah. You do a little bit of jiu-jitsu, I get that. So it'd be nice if you're really well. But I really want you for that little kid class, which is popular, right? I don't need the world champion in that, right? The amount of people that sent me an entire CV of them, their photo of them on the podium with a 20 RMB medal on, and it was just all the competitions they had won in the local scene, and zero about their experience in working with kids, nothing about their criminal record, nothing about them working with any children ever whatsoever. Yeah. And then in skills, it would on their little skills thing, it would be like single leg X guard and passing guard, and I'm like,
I understand.
Dude, I could not care less about this. Right. And I go, that to me, I was blown away. I was like, guys, nobody here could tell me about anything. It was about the experience of them, or even talk about a story about how they got started. Yep. What were their skills outside of this? What did they do beforehand? Nothing. It was just did I win this thing? Look at me. I'm the champion. I'm boss at this thing. I'm like, dude,
that's not what I want.
Not what I wanted.
Do you know my favorite part of teaching kids? And I'm not trying to sell myself here. I remember
someone wants a job. Someone wants a job. He's like, yeah.
My first year, I was the mean coach, and all the kids were like, I don't want to go to Arthur's class because I was super strict.
Sure.
If you were late, you had push-ups, all this jazz. And at the end of the year, this little girl came up to me. She was maybe 6 or 7. And she gave me this card, and it said, at the beginning of the year, we were crying to stay away from your class. And at the end of the year, we're crying for you not to leave.
Oh,
and I cried.
Yeah, right.
On the spot, I cried. I was like...
That's so sweet.
I couldn't handle it.
Love that.
Because as you go, all of these kids improve, and they're like, oh, Arthur's class isn't that bad.
Not that bad.
And then all of a sudden, all of the kids were like, well, we're all improving. Let's just go.
Just keep going.
And they all started making friends. And then all of them kind of got closer. And they associate that with me, even though I've done nothing. They will improve on their own. Yeah. But I've done almost nothing. But because I was associated with this time in their life, they're like, oh, I love Arthur.
Yeah, man, that is such a, that is one of the main reasons why to teach kids, and because you make this lasting impact in someone's life. Bingo. And there's these little humans that are going to grow up and so I walked down the street in Hongqiao Shanghai. We had, I reckon, over 500-600 kids come through the doors and do a trial at some point at the old gym, right? I've always been Coach Justin, always, right? The amount of times I'll be walking down in Gulbay somewhere, and then some kid will go, Coach Justin, and then and I'm like, I don't even recognize this kid. I don't know. Right. It's I'm like, hey buddy, long time no see. Oh my god, you've grown so big now. And they're like, and I'm like, yeah, cool, thanks, man, bye. Right. And that is that's really that feels. In that particular moment, I'm like, oh, I don't know who this kid is, but it is very lasting in these people's lives, and that's important, man. Yeah. I think that's a coachable skill though, is learning how to make that impact with kids, and that's something that we're trying to do now. Is we have a program that just teaches coaches how to be a coach, and everyone thinks they can coach kids until they do it. Yeah. And we've had kindergarten teachers come in and teach with us. They're no longer with us because they just don't get it.
Really?
Yeah, it's really strange, right? Because how they I think how education works here as a teacher is very different to running a martial arts class, right? But I think a good example is what I call relative energy.
Okay.
Right. Your ability to regulate your energy is the number one behavior management tool.
Huge.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just lost on most people, right? When they go into a class, and that doesn't have to be for kids, it could be for anyone. Yeah. But you come in, and if you're super hyped up, the kids get all hyped up, you're gonna burn things too hot, right? And then the kids get a little crazy. No, so your ability to be able to go, nope,
that's it. Yeah. We're done.
Back. Yeah. And then that relative energy is what is the biggest behavior management tool.
Correct.
If you stay flat the whole time, like, and like, this is not me calling anyone out, but Ken, a good friend of ours, like, you know, he works at Refuge. Right now, we're trying to get him to be up and down because he's just like this cool cat, like the whole time. He's just like this. And that's hard to like control a room full of kids, right? If they're all super excited, how do you pull them back? They don't know if you're serious or not, right? And so that's like one of the things we're learning now. It's like, how do we like artificially bump you up so you know like
you need like an extra cup of coffee in the morning, something to get you going.
Get you going. And then like how do we manage that? And then there are like just some tools and tricks like that just make it
it's funny
easier.
Because Dean at workshop used to be a kindergarten teacher, and Dean, I find, has a great teaching ability for adults because he has that kindergarten kind of background, because a lot of the new people, they don't get it, and he's super like detail specific. And I remember taking a class with Dean, and he was like, okay, now you repeat it to me. And that's like a kindergarten, you know? And I got it. And I was like, oh, Dean, you should do this more often.
This is smart.
You know, because me teaching back to you, now I have to think about it like extra. And I don't know if he knows he does it, but like he does a lot of those little things where I'm like, oh, you got that from just teaching kids. It makes sense.
What you could do, like, and this is a good exercise for anyone to do, is like go and watch someone who's really great at something, and they usually don't know how good they are at it. Yeah. And then you write down the things that they did, and then ask them if ask them why they did that, or if they recognize that they do it. And if they don't recognize that they do it, like it's really important to like knuckle down on that, because that's when you sort of really that's when you get the juice out. Yeah. Right. Like a good example is like, you know, the 4 P's of like of your voice, right? Pitch, projection, power, and then it's the staccato movement one.
I don't know.
Period. And so so using like the 4 P's of your voice, right, is like something that I never even thought of, but I was always a loud idiot in my class. Yeah. Right. I was always a loud idiot in my class.
Me too.
And I would be like and my ability to, like, if I had the kids on the other side of the room, being able to project my voice without necessarily yelling was important, because they need to hear me without thinking that I'm mad. Right. But then if I need to stop something because of time, like, you know, maybe there's a dangerous thing being done, or a kid's about to get hurt, me calling time with a staccato, those type of thing.
I'm good at that too.
Yeah, that's called period, right? And, like, I never noticed that I did those things. When I started working with Liam, who's very good, who's the guy who owns VT1, the guy who gave me a black belt, really good, like, awesome guy, one of my mentors, and I don't like that term, but one of my mentors. I got you. He was really good at, like, going, oh, Justin, you're really good at these things, but your ability to use your power is really off, because you don't, like, I need you to start using more like a what's the term you used? Diaphragmatic, right, breathing. So when you want to project your voice, right, you can go time and be very hard and fast, but you couldn't project it with that same power very far away. So if the other side of the room needed to hear time, you would not be able to get that done.
I'm great at that.
And so that's like little things like that, right? Is like really lost in the weeds, because he could sit there and pull them out and then go, oh, yeah, you need these little things, right? And he goes, you do all these things really well, but this is something that you don't do very well. Yeah. How would you fix that? And I go, oh, I don't know. And he goes, oh, well, I know how to fix that. It's, you know, diaphragmatic breathing. So like you always, if you can sort of sit down, and that's a really good way to sort of steal juice out of a lot of, like, you know, any sort of process, or anybody who's good at something. Yeah. You know, just ask them how they don't, like, ask them for things that, list down things they do really well, and find the ones that they don't know they do. Yeah. And that's like a good way to take it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Like a good one's like with Dean, you know, Dean is very detail oriented. Yeah. Last time I trained with Dean was like 3 or 4 years ago now, though. But he was like, the ability for him to say, like, to use the terminology, right? Like, so, okay, I'm going to externally rotate my foot outwards, like, right? Just little things like that. He probably didn't even realize that he did that. Yeah. Right. But that from especially if you're from a fitness background, you know exactly what that means, because it's very clearly defining the terminology. So stuff like that. It's a great example. Like,
you know what Dean doesn't do well, and I've told him, he can't control the room sometimes because he's so quiet. Yeah. Right. And I've told him that tons of times. His voice is just like this all the time. And I'm like, dude, all you need to do is be like, stop. And then immediately, kids, anyone is like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah, relative energy.
And if you don't have that, it's so hard to control the room.
Yeah, I think there's that. With kids in particular, there's a couple of extra tools, like good ones like countdowns. That works. Yeah, you know, like, hey, let's do this thing. You've got 5 seconds to get it done. 5, 4, like,
They rush to it.
They rush to it. And and people talk about man, how do you get the kids to do all these things? I've gone, one, resets and countdowns. A reset would be okay, I'm going to stop the class. They're all going to come to me and I'm going to do something that reconfigures their brain onto a new a new point of concentration. My classic reset is a hand clap one. Hands on your knees, hands on your shoulders. Hands on your head.
Really?
Hands on your shoulders. Yeah. Work? Oh, dude, you would be... Try it.
Okay.
It is unreal. Freeze. Time. Everyone eyes on me. Okay. They all do it straight away as fast as they can. Whoa. It's something weird. They must teach it at kindergarten really early, and people get it. It's like magic. You do it, and people are the one thing I do when we have a new coach come in, well, I always ask them to teach a triangle.
Yeah.
Right? Because every coach ever fucks up teaching triangles. Right?
Yeah.
They always make it way too hard. And two, I try and teach them. I make them teach something without speaking. And I can sort of look and see. That's my two number one ways of sussing out whether a coach has really got what it takes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. They don't have to necessarily do both perfectly, right? If they do both perfectly, then obviously they're going to be a great coach. There's a lot of potential there. But are they going to get frustrated and then they're going to quit?
Yeah.
Are they going to get angry at the kids for doing it wrong?
Right.
Are they going to be able to control the room when they're not doing it right?
Yeah.
Right. Those are two really good tests to suss out
that makes sense.
Good coaches.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, triangle's the good one. Ask any coach to teach a triangle and you'll see a lot. You'll see a lot come from it.
That's interesting because my favorite coach, or one of my favorite lessons, I would say, was Old Absolute when we were at Bye Show. And Hiago taught an amazing triangle.
Cool.
And Hiago was, I remember him just being super basic, old school kind of jujitsu.
Yeah.
But his triangle class was unreal. It was just, I didn't at the time know why it was better than all of the other triangle classes I've taken.
Why was it though?
I don't know. I have to think about it. But I just felt like I got it better from him than everyone else. And every other triangle class that I've taken since was just oh, well, that one kind of just hit home for me. I've never really sat down and pieced it out, but I bet you I could figure it out. It's been a while though.
Yeah, so fair. Yeah, he's been away for a while now. Is he back in Brazil now? Do you know where he's at?
I don't know. I think he's in Thailand.
Yeah, right. Yeah, fair. I think in particular, the reason the triangle is really difficult to teach is because one, there's a lot of coaches don't differentiate between the triangle and the setup, right? And the setup is quite athletically based. You need to be quite good at bridging your hips without necessarily putting your feet on the floor.
Correct.
And then the second part is the triangle itself. Once you've locked the 2 feet together, you actually don't want to be as athletic. You want to be as minimally athletic as possible actually in that moment, right? You want to be able to move your hips and adjust laterally, which is not necessarily an explosive movement up. You actually want to move very slick sideways.
Okay.
So because there's two very different movement patterns there, that's where people sort of, if they can only do one or the other, they can't differentiate these two sort of time periods. You should try and teach the setup. The setup should be taught as quickly as possible in a good triangle, right? And I'm sort of revealing the secret. So if you come do it this way.
Yeah.
But try and teach the setup as quickly as possible and make it as simple as possible for the audience that you've got in front of you. So if you've got a bunch of 5-year-olds, right? Maybe you don't have to teach them the spider guard setup to triangle, right? Yeah. Maybe what you do is you just go push arm in, push arm out.
Right.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
That's all you got to do, right? And then and once you've got that part down, now we can go, okay, now that we've done the setup, now we can learn a triangle. Right. And then the triangle's for me, it's 4 steps, right? It's 1, you're in T-City. 1, catch your foot. 2, move your butt out. So put your foot in the hip, move your butt out. 3, lock it up.
Lock it up.
Right?
Okay.
That's pretty much it. And that, you can go much further into detail of that, right? You can go much further. You can go much, you can make it even simpler, but it works.
Yeah.
And so...
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think if you make anyone do anything really difficult, you learn a lot about them, right?
Yeah.
It's when you see a kid trying to figure out a Rubik's Cube, and they're all right, are you the kid that gets frustrated and keeps going, or are you the kid that sort of just gives up and just throws off to the side and never does it again?
I watch kids, or I watch people rock climb, and there are 2 types of people at the gym usually. There's a group that kind of does a couple routes. They'll give it maybe 2 or 3 shots, and then move on to the next route. Move on to the next route. And then there are people like Bobo that you train with that will be that's real hard. I'm just going to spend the next hour just doing that one. And he's so athletic that he can, right?
Figure it out.
He can figure it out. without any like help, he'll just be like, "All right, I'm just gonna do that for like the next hour." And those people improve so fast because they just like, well, I have a goal. I'm just gonna do this. And then people like me and like my friends, when they're kind of for more of the social aspect, I think, I'm like, well, if all of us can't pass this route, we'll just go on the next route. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's nice to see like those groups of people kind of like interact with each other.
It's like the marshmallow test, right? In reality, have you ever heard of it?
No.
So when you have like a really young kid, like maybe it's like toddler age, 2 to 3 years old, you get like a marshmallow and you put it in front of them and you go, okay, I'm just gonna leave the room real quick. I gotta go outside. I'm gonna come back. Don't eat this marshmallow. If you eat it, like you're not gonna get in trouble. But if you don't eat, by the time I get back, I'll give you 2.
Oh.
You're allowed to eat it.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get in trouble. But if you but right now, remember, I'm gonna go, come back. When I come back, if it's still here, you get 2.
Yeah.
And you leave and you see if your kid eats the marshmallow straight away. Some kids just go, and then they just like face palm it and then they're done. Or some kids will sit there and wait. And they'll wait it out, and then when they come back, they go, okay, can I have my 2 now?
Yeah.
And some people are just like 1, and some people are 2. Right. And like, there's nothing wrong with either one. There's a lot of people that like to say, oh yeah, you always want a 2 kid. You always want someone that can delay gratification, right?
Yeah, that's what you hear.
Yeah, but in a lot of ways, that kid enjoyed what they wanted
right now,
and they also, what's the relative difference of a second marshmallow? Right, what's the relative enjoyment of a second marshmallow? Right, you're like,
probably not as good.
No, it's not as good. The first one was not nice, man. Maybe I don't need 2 marshmallows, right? And so it's just different ways to play the game, and like that's a perfect example. It's like the adult version of it, right? Some people just like sit on it and obsess over this one thing for an hour, and they're like, that's all they're gonna do.
Bobo got past a level 4, maybe his first or second time climbing ever, and he just sat there and just. For an hour, just over and over and over in that little corner.
It sucks.
And I was just like, I was amazed.
Yeah,
just unbelievable.
It's like one of those things that's like you leave it and your hands are just like busted up.
Yeah.
But in your head you're like,
I did it,
man. I did it. I get it. And like, I get that. I think you have to have a little bit of that. We call it mongrel in Australia. Yeah. Like you gotta have a little bit of mongrel in you. You know what I mean? Like a little bit. Like I gotta like a little scrappy. Like I like winning and like getting dirty with it. And now but in my head I won. I alphaed it. You know.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love watching people.
Yeah.
Like that.
I like to see people like that. I like to
because when they get it and the look on their face is just like I did it. Yes. You know.
Yeah. And then like secret I don't know. I think I get like that with some stuff. As I've gotten older, I've noticed I get less and less like that with certain things, right? Like I used to get that with jiu-jitsu all the time, where I'd roll somebody and I'd have to win. I'd be like, I gotta win this one.
Yeah.
And then and I'd go, I have to beat this guy. I'm not gonna let this go. And sometimes I still do get like that. I definitely still get like that. I think you have to have that in your head. But other things, I won't be like that at all. Like I won't play that game. I can't think of a good example though. Like, okay, I had a job. I got an office job back in Australia. I was working I was managing this gym, and then I got a big complicated story. I got a scholarship to go to uni, which was nice to go do my masters. So that's very exciting. And I went to go do my masters in this other city, and I got as a part of that, they sort of hooked me up with this like consulting job, like as a management consultant, right?
Yeah.
And because it's such a small city, I sort of skipped past the whole junior thing. I just sort of let me do whatever.
Okay.
Right straight away. I was learning at the same time. I was making good money.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great. And except I hated it, and it was an office job. And I was gone from teaching martial arts to like being this like office nerd and being corporate and I could tell that the work I was doing, some of the work was quite interesting, right? And then there was the other side, which is the office politics of it, right?
It's terrible.
And it's terrible, right?
Yeah.
But I could tell that I would be able to do that well if I really wanted to play that game.
Sure.
Right? And then I also realized I hate playing that game. So I was like, no, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And then I did this job for nearly, I want to say 6 to 9 months before I moved over to here. It was just before Refuge. It was during the Refuge saga.
Yeah.
Right? The second one, right? And I remember doing it and being like, man, I actually don't want this. This marshmallow is not the one I want. The second marshmallow, like I could probably earn a bit more extra money if I just played these office politics a little bit better. I just could not care less for that.
Dude, I completely agree with you. And it's why I actually wanted you to come here. because I wanted to ask you why you like working with kids. Because I had a very similar kind of experience. I found that when I work with kids, I want to say 8 to 12. That age group is like the best to me. I taught a little bit younger, but 8 to 12 was perfect for me because they don't know how to lie, or they lie really poorly.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, I get to kind of see the real you. As you get older and you work with adults, they've gotten that fakeness down well.
There's layers.
It's so hard to see, is that really you? And I hate, like, the more I do it, the more I hate it. Because I'm like, I'm just dealing with fakeness. And eventually, when I get through that mask, I finally see the real you, and I don't like it. And I'm like, oh, you're terrible. Why did I spend all of that time to get through this?
Exactly.
And then you're giving me this piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's so tight. But kids,
Tiring.
they're real.
Yeah.
They're real. They show you who they are, and you can deal with it as you take it.
I think there's like something to adult boredom. There's definitely something to that, right? And that sort of creates layers and unnecessary issues. Sorry, I'll preface this. I'll go back a step. I like working with kids for this very similar reason. They're very genuine, right? And you feel like you can make a real impact in lives relatively easily. Like the amount of effort I need to put in to make great impact is like significantly lower, right? And I think that makes me feel more fulfilled from a work perspective, right? On the other hand as well, it's just a totally different set of problems that I have to deal with. When I'm working and teaching adults, you know, a good example is working at VT1, right? I would teach the fundamentals program, which should have anywhere between 15 to 35 people in it, right?
35's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then you go to the blue belt class, which I was teaching like 60 to 80 people per session, right? And so just blue belts, and they're all in the room. And now that's a lot of people for China, but for like a normal class, that's quite common. That's really common at VT1. And the problems I had to deal with those groups, I also taught the kids program, were just the kids program. I'd have a broken nose, or I'd have a kid who lost a game, and then I had to talk to his parents about why he didn't get his black stripe today because his black stripe was blah, blah. Yeah. That's such a reasonable problem to deal with. And then it's sort of like I can work with the parents and we can all agree on this something. Sometimes you're gonna get shitty parents, and I get it all the time, right? But
that's the worst.
Oh, dude, I've got some horror stories. So I'll tell one after this one. The problem with the adults, though, man, good examples with the blue belts, one guy sleeps with another girl, and then next thing you know, they have a breakup. Yeah, it happens here all the time, right? And that's probably the number one thing that's the biggest pain in the ass because it always becomes this big personal issue, and it spills out to the gym, and then it reflects badly on the coach because the coach has to pick a side, and all that sort of stuff is just a headache, and you don't have to worry about that with kids. Yeah. With 4-year-olds, you don't have to worry about that at all. Yeah, that doesn't even exist. That doesn't even enter consciousness, right? When we get to the teens, there is a little bit of that, right? Yeah. Like once they're above 12, we really have to really make sure and look at who's rolling with who and what's the relationship looking like and how do these, that's a very different set of problems. But pretty much on the 12, I don't have to worry about that, man. Yeah. I don't have to worry about any of that. And that's
I didn't think about that.
Incredible. It's incredible. So it's a lot of stress, and I know how to deal with those problems better. Like a kid who's a little spoiled and doesn't like to lose, right? If I go to the parent and say your child doesn't like to lose and he's been acting out in class, 9 times out of 10 that parent's going to agree with me that that's a bad thing to do. Yeah. There's obviously that 10th time where their kid's perfect and of course, maybe did you think about playing a different game? I'm like, no.
It's a personality thing. It's not the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, I think there's a little bit of that, but those are really reasonable problems to manage. Yeah. And I like to think there are good problems and there are bad problems, right? I would love to have good problems, right? Yeah. Good problems is a good problem will be I'm looking to have 400, 500, 600 students by the end of the year. Yeah. I don't know how I'm going to fit them all. That's an awesome problem to have. Great problem to have. Bad problem would be I had 5 blue belts, go out, get drunk, and 2 of them had a 3-way with the other guy's girlfriend, and then next thing you know, now you've got to pick a side, Justin. Who are you going to support, and how are you going to create a healthy room environment, with these 5 people who have had this situation? I go, man, I don't know how to do that in my personal life. Yeah. I don't know how to do that in my life, let alone figure out how to do it at this school. Dude,
I can't empathize. I don't get it.
No, exactly. So So that's probably like the big thing is like, okay, the problems get better. The kids are really sweet, and I can manage that much more effectively, right? And I think that's what's more fulfilling for me.
I agree with that.
Adults, just like I will teach our coaches. I will teach, if someone wants me to help them with upcoming fights, and then a couple of the parents, if they want to come in and train. But I don't plan to necessarily run a big adults program ever.
Yeah.
Ever. I'm probably going to cap it at maybe 30 or so students.
Yeah.
Ever. Right. And I think like the idea that like I'd have like, like my coach Liam, he was like, yeah, one day I want to have like an academy of like 50 black belts. Like right now he's got like 20 something, 22 maybe. He's got 22 people that had got his black belt from him, right? And that's awesome. Yep. That's really cool. Like, and he's got a really good roster of people like, Richie, who was here before. Oh, yeah. Richie got his black belt from Liam. So he's got like UFC fighters, and he had like, he has a world champion in there, and like he's got all these different people, right? And that's awesome. That's awesome. But I could not, that's not something I want in my life. Yeah. I don't think that's something I really want. Like, and I think it's just that problem. Yeah, maybe I'll have like 30 people. I think one day if you said, I'll go put belt off Justin, that'd be like one of the few things. Maybe a brown belt, if they're a coach with me, right? I don't see myself having that longer.
Here's my problem with teaching kids then.
Yeah.
Is that they always leave.
Yeah.
I had the issue, like, I coach a kid, let's say 2 or 3 years. And then they maybe go to a different Y. They go to a different team. They move to a different city, or they just graduate our program. I know that I've made an impact, but I also look back. I only remember maybe 3 teachers or coaches ever. Yeah. And I hope that, I was one of those that made an impact on the kid. But like, I also want to see where they're going. Yeah. And sometimes I just always feel like it's just churning things out. And that really got me. That's why I stopped. Yeah, I was just like, I want to be maybe more long-term or maybe really short-term. Yeah. Which is why when I backed out, I was like, I only want to deal with kids who want to go to competition. And I'm going to give them 3 lessons. I'm going to fix their problems and then be done with them. Yeah. Okay. And there's less emotion involved. Yeah. But I can give you real quick results right away. And that's kind of where I landed, because I was like, if I really emotionally invested, right? And I was like, I love these kids, it's such a great team. And then then they leave, and I was like, man, and then I have to emotionally invest in the next group. And
how many cohorts did you do at one time?
I had one group.
That's it. Yeah. Okay. So that's easy to invest in that, man. Yeah. Because that's all. So we talk a relative attention span. Yeah. Right. So for you, that 1 hour, right, and this also works on their end as well. That 1 hour is like where you're funneling all your energy and attention into, right? Right. Yeah. And so, but then it goes the opposite way for the kids, right? So for you have to spread. Say you had 30 kids in your class, right? You have to spend that hour, right, and divvy that time up between those kids, and that's and that's an average approximation. Some kids don't get any of your time; other kids get 5 minutes, right? Correct. And so the average would be 2 minutes per kid, right? Let's just say it as a number, right? But it's now the opposite when you think about it from your perspective. That's true, but that child is spending the 60 minutes with you, right? And so for them, it's like it's a reverse. So they get quite attached to you as well, right? So there's that sort of relative attention span, or that sort of the opposites of the inverse of that attention span, right? Yeah. As you go further into more cohorts, and this is a bit of a shame, it's a bit sad, but you will actually be less emotionally invested in every single one, because you actually can't physically put the
you just don't have that gas tank.
Yeah, you don't have the gas tank for that, and so you can still build healthy relationships over many cohorts, right, and still get emotionally invested in the program, but the loss factor is actually limited quite a lot when those kids go off and do other things, because you physically can't emotionally equip yourself. It's impossible to do that. So that kids leave and you go, okay, that's a part of the life that I am living, right? Is that these kids will go on to move on to do different things, right? And if you were doing the job, and this comes back to the core premise, we're trying to sell confidence. I'm trying to make these kids confident. I'm not trying to make them world champions, right? Right? We can have them. World champions are great, right? But I want most kids should be able to come in and feel great and do the stuff. And that is If that's your goal, right, then that will be, you know that the next step is going to always happen, right? Whereas if you were like, what you're saying here, you're like, I'm going to fix your problems and make you really, really good at that.
Yeah.
When you emotionally invest in them, the next step is like, oh, well, they are gone, right?
Yeah.
I did solve all their problems,
right,
and now they're gone forever.
But I like that.
You like that though? You like that?
I actually enjoyed that because I was just like, oh, there's not that much emotional attachment. You come in, I give you 3 to 5 lessons. I fix your freestyle. It's better than it was before.
Sure.
Go to your meet, you win, do better, and then we're done.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
And I just fix your problems. We don't emotionally attach, and I just give you exactly what you need done.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's something to that. Like, that can be, yeah. Like, I think it's the type of lifestyle you want to live, right? Yeah. And if that's like, I like a little bit of emotional attachment in that sense. Like, I like that, you know. That's why I do it, right? It's because I think it's awesome. But if you want to just go in and fix the problems and come out, that's also like sort of, one, you're also going to suit a smaller pool of people.
Much smaller
group of people, right? So you're going to have greater impact on smaller numbers of people.
Yeah.
But, you know, for me, I would much rather have like I said, 1,000 kids come into the gym and have like 1,000 students that all like are getting something out of it. And that would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But like that one kid, I always worry about trainers, especially here, but because it's kind of, fitness is kind of new, that kind of just leads you along. They never really give you the end thing that you need. They're just like, oh, just keep taking lessons from me. And that bothers me to no end. And I would much rather be the trainer that's like, this is exactly what you need done. We're going to fix your problem, and then, you know, you pay me, we're done.
Yeah.
And to some extent, I like that almost better, you know, because I'm not dragging you along and trying to get more money out of you.
Do you reckon that's like a money thing, or do you reckon that coach doesn't know how to do it?
Ooh.
You know?
I don't know.
Yeah. That's what I think. There's two. I think there's both there, right? Because I don't think that coach, usually most coaches don't know how to like go from 8, like there are a lot of coaches that will tell you they'll make you a world champion that have never been to worlds.
Yeah.
There are a lot of coaches who teach jiu-jitsu and they go like, hey, I'll get you ready for an MMA fight. And then they've never actually been to an MMA fight, right? They've never actually, like, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? Like, that's, like, they've never done the thing, right? And so, like, you know, you talk about a guy going and, you know, fighting, you know, maybe you want to have someone go fight in the UFC, right? But they've never been and cornered a UFC fighter before. So for them, it's a new experience as well. So I think that there's sort of two sides to it. One, there's like a bit of blind trust. So you got to trust this coach, and that happens with all coaches. Yeah. And then two, I don't know if that coach really knows how to, they're sort of like, they're almost faking it till they make it themselves, right? And then, you know, their dollar comes on. It's like, it's an agency issue. It's called the agency problem. So the agency problem is like, okay, I'm going to find a consultant, and then that consultant's not going to solve my problems. They're going to bill me. Their incentive is to bill me as many hours as possible. Right. And that's how they're going to make their money. Yeah. So what they'll do is they'll consistently make us like better, but with like a sort of always have that gap beyond the horizon, right? Like the horizon will always sort of go here. We'll build this much up to the problem. Here's this gap. Okay, now the new horizon's going to be up here. Right. And so you're constantly having to pay them as the horizon always grows. Yeah. But if your profit margin is that actual gap between what they're charging and then that horizon, right? If you look at it, actually they're taking most of this value. Right. You're actually going still in the same margin, this same little bit here. Like, I think that's what happens with a lot of fitness coaches. Yeah. Right. They don't know how to, and then they also get incentive to sort of back it up. So yeah, I think that happens quite often. I think the way you do that is you actually just have set plans. Like, you know, like for me, right? Set goals. Set goals. Yeah. So with me, so if you want to buy 20 private lesson pack, which is our with a hero package, right? And the hero package is like that's not what we advertise it as. It's like our internal name for it. Hero package is like the top package. That's super, like, you know, it's quite expensive. You have to look at it and go, oh, look at that. And like, so you get 20 private lessons with me. I sit down, I write you down a training plan. Write down, that's including not just what you're learning for the 20 private lessons, but how you're going to train the group class, who you're going to train with. I actually set you up with training partners. Yeah. This is for the kids. This is for like what a kid will do. Yeah. I even like sometimes, if depending on the kid, we'll talk about nutrition, or what they're doing, how they're sleeping, what's their time like, what should their rest periods be looking like. We go into we go right into big. There's like a 2-hour conversation of the parents, with the parents and the kid. That's a lot. And we go really big into it. And then by the end of 20 lessons, you should be able to hit these like certain milestones. And we book out those sessions beforehand. So on the calendar, we know who's coming when, at what times, and what our milestones should be. And if you have that, and you both agree on those milestones along the path, I think that makes it
Harder to cheat.
Harder to cheat,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's important, right? And I don't think most coaches think about that. I think they think about getting really good at the sport, and then they're like, okay, I'll just do the sport with the person that is my student, and then they will also enjoy it as much as I do, right? But that's not really what's going to make you better. A coach needs to be able to abstract themselves away from it. You know, martial arts is the only sport where we expect the coach to always be better than us, right? If you think about soccer or tennis or anybody else, your coach isn't actually better than the athlete most times, right? You know, if you think about it, they might have been beforehand,
right?
But like if you have an old soccer coach, right, who's been coaching for 30 years, he probably knows his shit about soccer, right? Yeah. But he's not going to be running laps on you at the field, right? Yeah. Swimming coach, I'm sure you're faster than most of the kids because they're kids, right? Okay. But you know, if you were to coach like an athlete who was like, you know, at the Chinese Olympic level, right? You could teach them things, I'm sure, right? But then you're not faster than that guy.
No way.
So, you know, this is the only sport where people go, oh, I need him to beat me up.
Yeah.
And you can get away with that, right?
Yeah.
So you can go, so because I will beat you up, right?
Right.
We can just do the sport. We can just roll for half an hour or 45 minutes. And you go, yeah, nice. I got what I needed out of that. And then that coach just got to roll for 45 minutes and get paid.
Right. I didn't even think about that. That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, man. There's like a lot of stuff. I put like for me, I go on blast with a lot of guys because I'll just call them out on a lot of the shit that they get away with. And for me, I go, you know, it's easy for a lot of people. I've had people talk to me before and be like, "Oh, you're a kids coach. You're just a kids coach. You do these things." And you know, the old Refuge. You know, we had some kids who were, they were just they had to have a good time. You know, they weren't there to become world champions, and there's nothing wrong with that. Exactly. But a lot of people look at that and they go, "That's not right. No. That's not right. Those kids you should be trained hard every session. They're trying to kill each other, right? Like, and I don't agree with that. And I go, look, at least I'm setting clear guidelines for the kids to learn. Like, if you want your first stripe, your first white stripe, there are 6 takedowns, 4 positions, 10 transitions. Show
me those. Yeah. When
I say them, just do it.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you don't have to hit every single one in competition, but if I say do an Osotogari, can you do a Tori underpass? Can you go to mount? Can you do an armbar from mount? Can you do all these things? That kid should be able to go, yeah, cool. And they just do it. Yeah. And that's their first stripe. Most people think a first stripe should be like, you know, my kid needs to win gold medal at this thing or kill all these other kids and he has to be as good as these other guys, grey white belts at this gym or whatever. I'm like, damn, dude, like that sounds hardcore. That sounds stressful, right? And like, that's an easy milestone that makes that person feel like they're appreciated. Yeah. And then I don't have to put any extra pressure on these kids because they know what the rules are. Yeah. We both agreed to the game. Yeah.
I think those kids have enough pressure already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, Lego class, right? Get this, right?
Wild.
Yeah, right? Lego class. I was like, what the fuck? And guess how much it costs per class? 350 RMB.
Get out of here.
45-minute class. 45 minutes. You're like,
to play with Lego,
man. Yeah, exactly. It's like, what in the world are this?
That's nuts.
Oh, man. And we had like at the old Refuge, we had an issue with them. We had like a bit of a tiff with them, I would say, because they changed the time and a bunch of our kids couldn't come to our class. Yeah. And they put it 15 minutes ahead. So yeah, exactly. And like, you know, and then I was like, am I going to dojo still in the Lego school for me? Because they moved their class 10 minutes beforehand and a bunch of our kids couldn't come. Yeah, it was the whole damn thing. And I went over there and I learned all about it. I was like, oh my God. And their idea is like, oh yeah, we can teach like, you know, the fundamentals of engineering in a lot of ways and all this other crazy crap. Yeah, man. Being in this space at the moment is super interesting because there's like AI and coding schools. Yeah. Right? I don't know if you've heard about it. It's called Future.
Yes.
Yeah, those guys are cool. We worked with them on a camp once. Yeah, yeah. We did like, we did art. We did an art class. We got an art teachers come in, do like, you know, volcano-y, make volcanoes out of like shit and stuff. And then they did jiu-jitsu and then they went to robot school and learned how to make robots. That was pretty cool. That was pretty dope. We even got like one school, our latest camp, we made a movie. Yeah. We made like a Karate Kid style movie.
That's cool.
Right? And so in 5 days, the kids made like an action movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sick, which is really cool. And so I think that guy will eventually, who end up being a videographer, I reckon he'll actually start doing that as a thing, like teaching kids how to do videography. Yeah. I was like, that's awesome. That's a great idea, right? We don't need another extracurricular activity because the kids have like literally they finish school at usually 3:30. Yeah. They have a snack time. They have class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. They don't finish till 7:30, 8:30 at night sometimes. and they go home, sleep.
And
do
you
it
have
again.
homework. Let's be real. Like, you have homework.
Yeah.
I don't know what you did when you were a kid, but me, I was morning swim. I mean, when I was 15 or 18, it was swim in the morning, go to school, snack, swim at night, and then rush and finish all of my homework. I didn't have time for 3 extracurriculars. I had time for 1.
Yeah.
Like, that was it. And every day was just Monday to Saturday was swim. That was it.
Yeah, that was it.
That's all you could do.
That's what you want to do.
These kids have 3 to 4. And like, how are you fitting all of this? Are you good at any of them? You
That's
know?
the other thing, right? Exactly.
Because at some point, like, I see a lot of kids that do jujitsu, and everyone's like, "Oh, that kid's been here for a year. When he's 13, 14, he's gonna be amazing." He might not stick with it.
No, you won't.
You know,
Probably
like
won't.
exactly. So like, everyone's like, "Oh, we're breeding the new." Yes, to some extent, you are helping some kids get introduced to jujitsu, but how many of them actually stick with their interests? My sister never stuck with any of them. She did horseback riding, Irish dance, a ton.
Yeah.
Doesn't know how to do any of them anymore.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly.
But I did swimming forever. And I still love it to this day.
Yeah.
I still swim to this day.
Yeah.
Because I really just got into it. And then all of my friends were there. It was just something I was
It's part of your
obsessed with.
identity by that point as
Yeah.
well too, right?
Bingo.
Like you'd made it a part of your identity, and I think that's what it's like. You know, when you're a kid, when you're a child, you're trying to figure out who you are, and right, and like, man, you don't know who the fuck you are until you're like 25. You know, even then you're like still like a bit lost. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I don't even know. And so like, I think as parents, I don't think most parents think of it like this, but I think, like, you know, abstractly looking at it, or
And
objectively
neither of
looking
us
at
are
it.
parents, by
Yeah,
the way.
by the way, neither of us are parents. I might be, but I don't know
Right.
because you. Anyway, so, but you want to like provide the best base of education for your child to succeed best in the world, right? I think it's what all parents want to do, right? And now that goes back to your values, right? Okay, what do you want? Like for me, my background, like my mom just wanted me to be happy.
Yeah.
Right? She didn't really. There was no pressure on academic excellence. My mum said, "Oh yeah, I was quite good at math at school. I was like my thing." She said, "As long as you get 70% on every exam, I don't really care. 70 is your number. Like I don't care if you get a mark over it, but if you get a mark under it, you're in trouble."
Yeah.
And so, what were my marks in every single subject? I got 70 on everything.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I got because I didn't get the push, right? But she did say, "Look, we do need cash. Like my mum raised me by herself, right? I'm one of like 6, effectively. So
You have 5 siblings?
yeah. So like, long story short, like long story long. My mum had 2 children, myself and my brother Matthew. But then we had these 2 cousins who would like live with us for a long time, right? And mum looked after
family.
basically family. That's my cousin Alex and my sister Jessie, right? Cousins, but like very, very close to them.
Yeah.
And then my mum remarried when I was way later in life. Well, I've got 2 stepbrothers. Yeah. And so one of us was 6. So, but for the large part, it was like just her, but with the 4 kids for a while. And it was for mum, it was like, hey, we don't really have much cash because she worked in a sandwich shop.
Yeah.
She made sandwiches part time. You know, maybe if you went out and got a job because I was the oldest, it'd really help us out. So,
Right.
you know, I was helping pay the mortgage at like 15, you know, and I was having that. So that was just different. It was just a different thing for me. She was like, I don't really care if you get the best marks. Do you want to go to uni? I was like, I don't want to go to university. I'd fuck that. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And I was like, well, you know, making money's nice and being able to buy my own clothes that, you know.
Don't have to wear hand-me-downs anymore.
Exactly, yeah. This is
nice.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. So let's just do that. And so I did that. That's what got me into chefing, right?
Gotcha.
And I think it comes back to your values, right? Yeah. So we're trying to make the best, what were the values? Foundation for a person.
Correct.
And that will inevitably mean that you're going to have high churn of the things that you're going to enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't think the values in China are to be excellent in all these pursuits and then to stick with them. And I think like if they don't have excellence, they churn out quickly. They just turn them out really quickly. Yeah. And that's what happens. And that's very stressful, right? There's not told to enjoy until like you talked about before. It's about goals, not journeys. Yeah. Right. And a lot of these parents are like, I need you to be X, Y, Z goals because I need to get into this school. Correct. And it's going to make it a lot easier and a lot cheaper for me. Like to get in, for you to get into, you know, some school in the US to get into Berkeley. Right. We're having that now. Like I wrote a reference for a kid the other day to get to into a university in the US. Yeah. Right. They wanted to pay us a whole bunch of money to make a reference up on this thing. Yeah. And say that he'd been training for 5 years. And I was like, I can't do that, man. Yeah, I'm not. I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do these things. But
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, man. You go like, and that's what they want now. They want excellence, not journey.
Yeah.
And
but the journey's so important.
yeah, and like I don't know, it is, and it's not, right. It is because it's very important for a personal development point of view.
Yeah.
But if your life is to get into that school, well, then it's probably pretty important to do goals, right. It comes.
No, I think they're just pushing the journey further, right? The actual journey that they're looking for is like, but then they just keep pushing it. Like, here's what I found, and we're a little bit late on time. My mom never got to enjoy her life. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah.
She wanted to do all of these things. She wanted to go climb Huangshan.
Yeah, sure.
Can't do it anymore
Yeah,
because she's too old. She
yeah.
kept pushing out things that she wanted to do. Like the journey that she wanted to have, she never got to it.
Yeah.
You know, because she was like, oh, these other things, I need to get a Mercedes. I need to get a big house. And all of these goals, she got them. But like she never got to really enjoy the journey ever because she just kept pushing it further and further back.
Sure.
And then I kind of rebounded. I was the exact opposite
Opposite way.
because I saw her and I was like, I don't want to like be 60 or 70 and not be able to do anything that I wanted to do. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to enjoy my life right now. And then I was kind of like, well, then I'm kind of pushing off a lot of stuff of that hard work that I probably should be doing.
Yeah.
So there's a balance there.
There's definitely balance. Like I think it's super cliche and it's a bit corny, but The 4 Hour Work Week is a great book.
Yeah.
And talking about like, how do we maximize our time and live the lifestyle that we want is like super important. I think you can have both.
Yeah.
You can have your cake and eat it too.
I hope so. Okay. We're short on time. Again, push out Refuge. Where are you guys? What's it like right now? Go.
Cool. Awesome. So Refuge Martial Arts, we are in Gubei at the Beelin Center. Oh, right there. If you have any children that would like to come and learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we'll have a boxing program soon, or learn about just general fitness. Feel free to come along. We have an excellent community that does. We do events from summer and winter camps where we go visit the UFC Performance Institute to working with D-Future robot and AI engineering schools. We even made a winter camp where we taught the kids how to make movies. We do it all, right? We're trying to make a community of really like-minded, healthy individuals and families. And it's mostly around yoga and jiu-jitsu at the moment, but we're going into all sorts of fantastic ways. We really run this like a startup in terms of we pick up things that come. When things pick up, we go hard into them. And we really try and make something. We're trying to make something different. Yeah. So try and get in early, so you can say you're an OG before it's so big, right? And it's you can find us on WeChat, Refuge Martial Arts. We're also on Xiaohongshu, just check out our videos. Mostly, if you can like and comment on our videos, that would really help out.
Okay.
So,
I'll put all that in the description, and I hope I get to see you guys there. All right. Bye.